Well, here we are at Curtain Pole Road because Phil Thatch reminded me that it was here. I've got the Nikon Z6, the F to Z adapter, the 1.4 teleconverter, and the new 500mm phase Fresnel telephoto lens. And what I want to do today is try and get some wildlife photos with it. It's about 25 degrees today. It's December 26th, 2020, and it's super cold. So we're going to test the battery life as well, I guess you might say, because batteries tend to not perform very well in super cold climes. But yeah, I've got all that. I've got a couple other cameras in that truck too, of course, but that's what the primary tool is going to be today. So let's go get this gear out and see what we can find over here at the lake. Okay, I'm down here by the pond, as you can see, and I've got the 500mm PF 5.6 whatever on the Z6 with the F to Z adapter, and I came out here on a hunch that Phil Thatch gave me that there might be some waterfowl, ducks, what have you, but it's, are you kidding me? There's literally 2 ducks right over there. Let me get a photo. Dadgummit, I've been here for probably 30 minutes, ain't seen a single daggum duck, and the moment I start filming, there's 2 right over there. They're real pretty too. That's actually kind of funny, to tell you the truth. I mean, this pond is huge. I don't know if you can tell really, but I am a couple 300 yards from the beginning of it down that way, and I've worked my way super slow down here nearly to the other end, and by the time when I got down here to the far other end, that's where I found the ducks. They're out here fishing, I guess. That's why they just keep standing tail end up in the water. But I got a little bit of photos of them, and there's apparently 2 or 3 different kinds of ducks here. So I'm gonna see if I can move on up the trail and get a couple of better photos. So now I'm running the 500mm PF, the 1.4x teleconverter, the F to Z adapter into the Z6, and it's focusing and working perfectly. I've come up here to Chickamauga Dam. It's on the way to the Volkswagen wetlands, and I'm just going to see what I can kind of photo snipe with the rig. Man, for 500mm, this sure is light. Whew. But there's a blue heron perched on the end of the berm. The concrete berm separates the floodgates from the generator tunnels, and I'm going to see if I can get a decent handheld of that. Then I'm going to pull the tripod. This is my steady rest. This allows me to get more stable shots than handheld. And I'm gonna try this and see if I can get some good ones. I was hoping to see maybe an osprey, because there's some that linger over in this area. And Phil has got photos of them in the past. So I'm gonna play around here for a few minutes, then we'll head on over to the Volkswagen wetlands. Kind of escaped me that this is sort of on the way. I was actually gonna stop by here after VW, but I realized it's on the way. Let's get some photos. Well, unfortunately, I'm not seeing any osprey. I did get a cool photo of that. I'm not sure what it is, just to tell you the truth. There's a bunch of cranes of some kind out in the water. I don't know my birds like I should, I guess. I'll learn them eventually, but I got a cool photo of the fisherman over here. But I'm currently at 700mm, so I've got this 1.4 teleconverter on here. I may pull it off and get some just with the lens, but it's still focusing quite fast and sure, even with the F to Z, the 1.4 teleconverter, and the F-mount lens. It's working like a dream. It's getting really sharp photos too. It's like they're incredibly crispy. I'm kind of impressed. I mean, the lens is expensive, so it should perform, but it's working really well. Okay, I'm gonna head on over to the Volkswagen wetlands now. I'm gonna keep my camera in the front seat in case any kind of extraordinary opportunities present themselves and I can just grab it, roll down the window and take a photo or two, which I doubt really will happen, but you never know. So I've got a few photos here, but there's not really much going on, so we'll move on out and go over to the next place. Okay, I'm here at the Volkswagen wetlands, and what it is, it's a water feature built by Volkswagen, I guess to promote the environment. I don't know a lot of history on it. I'm sure you can Google it and learn lots more than I know. But yeah, there's a bunch of ducks right over there. And it's got like tiered levels. Looks like beaver dams have backed it up. There's a bunch of what looks like, I'm assuming to be mallards. They got like green heads. So yeah, there's a big beaver den right over there. There's something on that side of the creek too. Okay. I'm going to shut this off, try to be a little quieter, and see if I can get some photos for you guys. I just spoke to the gentleman in that car right there. He come up and gave me some tips. He told me the hiking trail is right back here. I'm gonna walk back here and see if I can find it. Let me lock up the truck. I grab my tripod, take it with me. But yeah, it's a real nice area. So let's see what happens. I tell you, I was kind of hoping to see some deer. I thought I'd run into a couple up in here, but I ain't seen any yet. Okay, I've spent a pretty significant amount of time up here at this little pull-off in the wetlands, and I hiked down the little trail back over to the corner of the lake here and stood there for a long time, and I got a few photos. There was a great blue heron on the other side of the slough, and then there was like a little songbird or two that lit on some of the deadfall that's out in the water, and then I got to hearing woodpeckers around me, because they make a really kind of odd squawk. It's pretty, once you learn what a woodpecker sounds like, you recognize it immediately, and they make a unique sound. Well, I got to hearing them, and so I was going to wait and see if I could spot one, and I stood there and I stood there and I stood there, and they never really got no closer. They normally will move around. They're not sedentary birds. They don't sit like the blue herons just sat there almost the whole time in one spot. But them woodpeckers, they're pretty flighty. They'll move around a lot. Well, I waited and I waited and I waited, and it just seemed like they never got any closer. And I kept hearing this odd chirping noise, and I finally just started spinning on, pivoting on my foot so I wouldn't make like a lot of noise. And I had my camera slung around my neck so it wouldn't make my hands tired, because this thing, even though it's small, it still gets heavy over time. And I happened to look straight up, and a dead tree that was basically all that's left was the trunk. On the very top of it was some kind of bird of prey, real light colored. I don't know what kind it was. When it took off, it was mostly like almost orange on the belly, orange and white spotty, and it flew off over this way, and I never did see it land, so I don't know how far it went. So I finally, when that happened, I started raising my camera to get a photo of it, but it was pretty much straight up, so I don't know what that would have looked like. I couldn't really tell much about it, other than I could just see that it was on top of that tree, and it blended in with it really well. So I came out, and I came back over here to where the truck's parked, and then I kind of eased around over across the road a little ways and waited some, and finally got a couple of photos of a woodpecker across the road, but it was a good ways off, so it's not very big in the image. And he moved around, and he finally moved over into kind of between me and the sun, and I really couldn't see him after that. So I'm gonna pull up stakes here. I got one other stop. I didn't see any deer either. I was kind of hoping to either see beavers or deer or something, and there's a lot of beaver dams right here, and none. I didn't see anything, but I'm gonna give it a shot. I got one more place I'm gonna go, and then we'll do a wrap up on this deal, and I'll kind of tell you what my thoughts are on this lens. But you know, preview, it's a pretty good lens so far. So, all right, let's move on to the next place. All right, we made it to Booker T. Washington State Park, and there's really nothing here that I haven't seen in the other locations. There's some ducks right over there. There's a backwater area, and there's a few ducks in it that I saw, but I was kind of hoping to see some deer. Phil has mentioned that he has seen deer here in the past, so you know, it was kind of on the way to the Volkswagen place. So I just pulled in on the off chance that I would see some wandering around, but there's not any that I've seen. And I looked pretty thoroughly, but I don't see any. But there is a pretty strong, like, human presence right now, so it may be that they've pulled back into the woods and they've just bedded down for the day. But yeah, there's not anything here. There's a few songbirds way up in the trees, but I ain't struggling around with it. To give you my thoughts on this lens, its current trim is the 500mm with the 1.4 TC14E Mark III teleconverter. It's the one I bought a couple years ago to go on my other 200 to 500. And then I've got the F to Z adapter on the Z6. This is the Mark 1 or Gen 1 or however you want to say that. But this setup works surprisingly well. With it set up like this, it's like it's basically a 700mm f8, and that's what the EXIF data will say when you read it, because it automatically does the mathematics for the teleconverter and adds it to the lens on the aperture and the focal length. So that's kind of nice with the teleconverters. Now I don't have the Z mount teleconverter. This is the F mount one, but it works. It works fine. It focused great. Supposedly it'll struggle. Now, I haven't tried it to stop down. Matter of fact, let's just do that. Let's see what happens. I'm gonna stop it down. Oh, I can't. I got an aperture shutter priority. Let me go to aperture priority. Let's stop this bad boy down. Let's see. No, it focused just fine. There's a little kid over here on a bicycle. Yeah, and let's see, and they're crispy. I mean, it looks pretty darn good. So let's see here. Where's the kid? Where's the people with the dogs? There they are, right there. Yeah, okay, that's all I really got to show you here, but I really like using it with the teleconverter because it just gives you that extra fourth of a reach, or almost a half. You know, it's almost 1.5. But the lens proper, if you take this giant lens hood off, there's a button that's supposed to release it. There it goes. This lens isn't much bigger than the 70 to 200 f2.8. It's pretty darn close to that size in footprint. The front lens is a little bigger, but not much. And if you take the foot off, the foot's got a little lock here and it's got a push button release on it. If you take the foot off, it's not a very large lens, and I think it weighs a little over 3 pounds. I could go through all this jazz, but there is like 700 videos like that already on YouTube. You don't need me to repeat it again. The lens feels real good in the hand. Honestly, I wish this knurled section was actually the focus ring and not this region here. This is just a grip. It doesn't do anything. This is where you focus manually, because there's times when, if it's like poor contrast, I guess, or whatever it's using to determine, that it don't actually like lock in on focus, and you want to kind of just push it and pull it a little bit, because I can hit this button. I've got function button 1 assigned to focus magnification. Okay, I'm gonna wait till I get home and edit the photos to give you my final thoughts, but honestly, I think this lens is a winner. So if you want to reduce the footprint, lose a stop of light, but still get really sharp 500mm photos, this ain't a bad choice. You know, the 500 f4 is going to be a little bit better glass, and it's also got another stop of light that this one don't have. So when you put a teleconverter on it, you still get like half the ISO, and that's always better for noise performance. But it's compact nature. It just works. It works really, really well. So with that, let's go into the editing suite and then let's talk at the house. Okay, after editing the photos, this is what I found. I only chose 5 of the photos to edit because I didn't want to try and literally go through every single image. The 5 photos I chose were these. I have the one of the duck right before it swims behind the deadfall in the water. I have the one of the blue heron with the shadows of the forest in the water. I thought that was a really beautiful photo. And then I have the one of some kind of diving duck. I'm not real sure. It would dive completely underwater and be gone for a few seconds. One with the really prominent yellow eye. And then I have 2 of some sort of songbird, and you guys will have to tell me what kind it is. That was all I actually bothered to really edit. Those were kind of my favorites. That songbird had a really beautiful color scheme. But of all the ones that I liked from the shoot the other day, this one is my favorite. I just love the symmetry of the forest reflected in the lake with the bird in the frame to add a little something extra to it. It's just a beautiful photo to me. And the 500mm phase Fresnel lens is in a family of 2 currently phase Fresnel lenses I'm aware of. They make a 300 and a 500, and they're very, very compact lenses. They do have an f5.6 maximum aperture. That's part of how they get them so compact. Another part is the Fresnel lens system, of course, which I could not tell a degradation in image quality from a Fresnel lens at all. They are beautifully rendered images. The lens has a whole bunch of functionality buttons all over it. It has a selector switch to allow you to kind of program the button. There's some push buttons out on the front end of the lens like my 70-200 has. I have a Gen 1 70-200 and it has the buttons on the front of the lens as well. But on this lens, you can actually tell it what you want these buttons to kind of do. It gives you about 3 options on the selector switch. And they're in a good spot, but I found them kind of, like I wanted to use them for AF on, but I found when I tried to manipulate them, I would move the lens. When I pushed the button, it would make the lens twitch. And then, of course, if at 500 and 700, especially with the teleconverter on it, I kept finding myself pushing the focus point because I was using like pinpoint focus because I was trying to pick a specific bird or whatever to focus on. I'd push the focus point off the bird when I go to use that. So I wound up just not using those buttons at all and just using AF on the back of the camera. And I wasn't getting that input of movement by pressing that button like I was when I was holding it on the lens. So those buttons, they could have left them off in my opinion. I just don't feel the value in them. I don't need them. And like I said earlier, I wish the focus ring and that grip ring were reversed. It would be nice if all of that region was focus ring. That would be really nice. I did set it to the 8-meter to infinity focus mode on several occasions. I'd switch it off some, but for the most part, I did set it to the minimum of 8 meters. And that way it doesn't have to hunt all the way back and then all the way back out. There's 3 focus modes. You have A with a little M, M with a little A, and then full manual. And I really don't know what's going on with those 2 automatic manual override modes, but I set it to regular auto with manual override, and it worked fine. So I'm not real sure. I really need to read up as to what's going on with that switch, but just regular autofocus mode, I could manual override it all I wanted and it worked fine. But yeah, the lens works great. So could I recommend it? Depends on how serious you are into like wildlife photography and how light you need your kit. If you're real serious, you'll probably want the 600mm f4, and you're willing to spend that kind of money to get that kind of image quality. But if you're wanting a lightweight travel kit that you can literally backpack in and then have 500 and 700mm available to you in the field and it not kill you to carry it, it's a great choice. Great choice. So with that, this is David, the Georgia photographer. I appreciate you watching. And if you don't mind, right down there, subscribe and the like button if you like the video, just as a little friendly reminder. And until next time, get your camera out and go take a picture with it. All right, we'll see you later. Bye-bye.